I just love this time of the year.
Autumn? What? Pumpkin spice? I mean,
no, it's the postseason, baby. Cue the music.
We have postseason baseball. We are so excited here. I don't know about you, Lynn, but Tuesday can't come soon enough.
It seems like an eternity since the last game last week.
Yeah.
I've been reading books, magazines, newspapers.
Me too.
Life has been empty.
Yes, exactly. Until this weekend when we had some postseason baseball to focus on. And we'll talk more about how that shook down. But I do have to say, the Mets had to Mets. I mean, they're going to take it to 3 games. And I mean, after the year they almost had.
Yes. Yeah. And I know it was painful for them to get in on the wild card, and that came down to the very end of the season. And and maybe that was part of the lack of Metsness that was present all season during game 1. But it seems like losing game 1 was good in a way because they came back yesterday to save themselves, and it wasn't a squeaker like it was with the Cardinals versus the Phillies. But yeah, so they live to see one more day. What's your prediction, Chris?
Well, I like to see the Mets win.
Yeah. Do you think that's likely?
I wonder who's pitching today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That would be a big factor there.
Right. That would be a factor, but
yeah. So
I like Buck Showalter behind the wheel. And I think maybe he's been there a time or two and knows how to get the best out of his team. So I like the Mets today.
Yeah. And I like the Mets today also, and just hope that it's another Subway series at the end.
Yes, that's to be wished for. I mean, what do you think when we think back about the Yankees 2022 season? I mean, what comes to mind? What things does it bring up for you?
It makes me feel the way I do when I'm about to throw up on the roller coaster. Because that really is the metaphor for this season for me. We were up,
God,
until the All-Star break. Uncatchable, and a vast and, in hindsight, silly assumption that we're postseason bound. And then the cyclone, the Coney Island cyclone ride, steepest hill down the fast before we could blink, and just so much to bite our nails about, from injuries to the bats hibernating. But then now we're at the top of the mountain, and it's going to be like, are we going to stay there or take a dip? And so, overall, I'm going to stick in the moment, and the goal achieved, and not through a wild card. Home field advantage, and we're set up for greatness. How about you?
I feel like this was the season that almost was, because we almost have 100 wins.
Yeah.
You could almost say that Judge almost didn't break the record. I mean, he kept us on tenterhooks. It was by no means a foregone conclusion there right at the end.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that he did break the record in spectacular fashion. We have something that Yankee fans haven't had for many years, and that is a 100% bona fide hero in Judge.
Yeah.
But I have to echo your thoughts on the way this was like a roller coaster. And definitely the ride up was so much fun. I mean, to say I thought I could handle this year. I was so confident on the ride up that roller coaster, and we were just laughing, weren't we? I said, I remember coming on the air and saying, it's so fun to be a Yankee fan.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive.
Yes.
Yeah. And then baseball reality hit.
That's right.
Because after all, this is baseball. And you're set up to fail more than not, often than not. And the Yankees certainly had their share of struggles in the second half of the season. To the point where were we even going to win the division after having that, 15.5-point lead at the All-Star break?
That's right.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where we were.
I think, yeah. And
exactly where we
so were. This Yankee season was the best of times and the worst of times. Actually, there was not a lot of continuity. It had a very distinct personality in that you would have blasts of offense, and that made it seem like the Yankees just absolutely could not be contained.
Right.
But then the next day, and for days after, a drought would appear in the offense where there would be nothing. And this went on, in the second half, to the point of exhaustion for Yankee fans.
Right. Yeah.
Judge carried this team in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely did. And, that's part of what helped getting to 62.
Yep.
But I think what we lost sight of is to expect the unexpected, because, a part of just the hibernation and of bats and things I mentioned at the beginning, we also had unexpected injuries that really, and for guys that are part of the core of carrying the team, which is what left Judge in the position he was in.
Right.
We would not have expected Carp to be out the remainder of the season.
Right.
We had just gotten Benny, and he had that horrible wrist injury. So, and the bullpen,
right. And Rizzo's back.
Right.
DJ's toe,
which, I scoffed at, like, oh, the toe, but, that once I came to my senses, it was like, well, that's throwing him off balance at the plate.
Yeah.
You can't push on that, leading foot.
No.
So, and what do you think of his first few appearances back?
I wish I'd stop saying You got to remind me to stop doing that.
And my media coach has told me to stop saying,
Okay, we have to remind each other. All right. What do I think of what? I forgot the question because I'm old.
What do you think?
DJ.
Yeah.
I think that DJ. I think that DJ is not going to be the DJ that we wish we had. I would like to see him return to the hitman that we all know and love.
Yes.
And that happened in the postseason. I mean, he's a determined man. And if we do see that, could we possibly see that in the leadoff spot, Lynn?
One would hope, because really the main reason why Judge started leadoff was to give him more opportunities at bat to break the record. I think the fans have noted that very soundly on Twitter also. He really is our leadoff guy, and when he's healthy DJ and consistent DJ, that's who you want there, and that's the hanging question, because we also know DJ is one to deny injury.
Right.
And mask it the best way he can. But, I think that was probably easier to do defensively than it would be at the plate.
Definitely.
Case in point, I'm thinking of last season.
Yeah.
And how long it took to, uncover what was going on.
Yep. No, absolutely right. I mean, as far as Judge in the leadoff spot, I think fans are resigned to it, because if not Judge, who? Especially if DJ is not going to fill that role, maybe Cabrera. But just wondering what I asked on Twitter this week what people thought about Judge in the leadoff spot. And most people didn't like Judge in the leadoff spot, but they didn't see that changing. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I swear to God, but, when we talk about our reflections on this season, it gives me another opportunity to say how much I disappointed in Aaron Boone I am. I don't think he knows why they win when they win, and I don't think he knows why they lose when they lose, because he can't sustain a winning team, and it didn't seem to me in the second half that he pushed the buttons that needed to be pushed to, maybe not suffer the sort of losses and things that we did in the second half, the struggles that they had in the second half.
Right. At least from what we can see.
Right.
And, I think the most managerial moment I saw of him was his decision to pull Sevy from the game in the midst of a no-hitter.
Another controversial.
And knowing he'd have big controversy, which is tough on a people pleaser, and which I think he essentially is. He's a yes man to his bosses, and always sings high praises, and only high praises of his team, regardless of what's glaringly true. So, that was like the moment of the season, where he made that tough call and went out and did it. And, you saw the bit of conversation as Sevy refused to look at him, where he's like, it had to be done.
And, I would have agreed with that move if Sevy had been pitching from day one and not been out for. He just came back. What is he made of, glass?
And he also
joked the way these pitchers are pampered, and he certainly doesn't have the mileage on his arm this year.
And not just the pitchers. He rested Bader, the last of the season. But, going back quickly to Sevy, he wasn't even over pitching budget when he was pulled. And so I don't remember the exact number of pitches, but that was one of the, points of contention on Twitter also. So, but he showed some chops there. But but I agree, and I think that's just been the statement ever since he's been here. He has a golden opportunity right now to show real leadership, going into the ALDS, and so speaking of the ALDS, we now know who we're facing.
Yes, we do. So we're facing the Guardians, and that scares me a little bit. I'm confident, but that pitching staff scares me.
And it should, because they have three, very high level pitchers. So, we have Bieber, and we have McKenzie, who in his last, 3 months of the season, actually from the start of July, he has been pitching a 2.19 ERA and a 2.70 FIP. So, even more so than Bieber, who's been sort of the Cole of the Guardians. he's really the one I think to worry about. And then we have guys like Quantrell and Classe, and Karen Chak. I hope I'm saying that right.
Right.
In the bullpen, as well as Trevor Stefan. So they have an arsenal for on the pitching front end and late innings.
Yeah, and that was proven yesterday in the fact that it took 15 innings and they had the pitching to hold it to 0 for 15 innings or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a challenge for these Yankee hitters, I think, and I think the only answer is to be aggressive and go after these pitchers. I don't know. I don't know that much about it, but it seems to me that would be the approach. And on the Yankee side, we, barely getting any notice this week. Cole managed to surpass Gator in Yankee all-time strikeouts.
Yeah, and it got lost in the sauce because of Judge Watch. So right. And so I think that Cole was a very gentleman sportsman with that, but we really, I hope in the highlight reel of the season that gets the notice that it deserves. We know Gator was the GOAT. We're lucky we have several GOATs in our history.
Yeah.
On the mound, but that record had been around for decades,
right?
And he crashed it. And like you said before we came on, Chris, it's so true that Cole really needed that because he has not had the ace of a season,
and we know that he has not had the success this season that fans expected because people are clamoring for Nestor to be the game one starter. Against all reason, they're clamoring, I might add.
Well, right, because we know that's not going to be how
it's not going to happen.
It's how the fans feel. It's what the fans want.
Right.
And face it, we're right a lot. But and unfortunately, we don't know what the Guardians are planning for their rotation, the sequence of their rotation.
Right.
Were we to know that when Bieber was pitching, that would be the match for Cole, because Cole, has handled Bieber, greatly. So, but we don't know what the matchup will be.
Right.
But the top three certainly remain Cole, Nestor, and Sevy.
Yes. Right.
And that brings us to the question of the rest of the starters, knowing that Tyone will be one of them, but the question mark is with Herman.
Yeah.
So starting or bullpen, Chris? What do you think
the Herman is? I'd like to see starting if he's needed in that role. I mean, I can't. I don't know if that would happen, but to me, Herman is a much better pitcher than people give him credit for. He has had some unfortunate starts, yes, but in general, when Herman's named the starter, I feel pretty confident that that's going to be a good day for the pitcher on the mound.
Yeah, and I think that his last appearance alone was far better than what we had seen since he came back. But on the other side, we have key guys missing from the bullpen.
Yeah.
Well, we have since early on, but now with Marinaccio on the IL, Britton, done for the season. I'm sure.
Is Britton done or done?
Yeah, like I think the fork has been stuck in.
Yeah.
So, we could probably use Herman more in the pen. And since, it's a 5-game set, at least in the short term, since it's a best of 5, then, the four man, might just get us through. But so that remains to be seen. And but the takeaway with this pitching discussion is that I think that it seems, and I've read articles from Pinstripe Alley, and post from yesterday that really just highlights the concern about the pitching.
Right.
On the plus side, this season Yankees took 5 of 6 from the Guardians. And then in terms of our postseason record with the Guardians, I have a tweet from at New York Yankees Stats. And so it's a mixed bag going back to 1997. So, what happened this season is not reflective of our history with the Guardians by any means. So we more recently in 2020, we won the wild card series. We swept it, actually. We won the 2017 ALDS, but that was just 3-2. We lost the 07 ALDS. Obviously won the ALCS in 98, but lost the ALDS in the year before that, in 97. So it's tit for tat. In the postseason. And when you consider that Cleveland's entering the series with us on Tuesday, having beat the Jays,
the Rays,
imagine how juiced they are. Can you just? I mean, so they're going to come, just fully like. Momentum isn't even a strong enough word there. And I do have to give a shout out to at Bronx Bombers. He really had the tweet of the week, Chris. Here's what it said. Blue Jays since this is my house. Judge hits number 61 in Toronto. Yankees clinch the East in Toronto. And the Mariners win the wild card in Toronto. Vladdy's a great host. 10 out of 10 recommend visiting.
I love it. Absolutely what Vladdy deserves.
And yeah, I really, when we get off, I think I'm going to retweet this and tag the daddy.
I think that might need to go on a plaque.
And Yankee fans that go to Toronto games, I want that on a banner hanging from from the railing. But Vladdy's been out daddied.
Yeah, Vladdy, he kept his mouth running this season, and I bet next year he won't do that. He'll probably be a quieter young man. Well, my guess. So,
he just has so much hubris. I would hope so, but he can't. He just can't help himself.
No, he can't help himself. Another thing that worries me about going up against the Guardians is I think Terry Francona is master, at winning baseball games and high-profile games. So, I mean, there's always that to consider. What kind of influence he'll exert as the I love the chess that goes on between managers on during the postseason. That's what I love about every baseball game, but especially during the postseason.
And so, per what we were just talking about, it's an automatic checkmate.
Yeah.
Because, talk about, pitchers that are going to outdo the other pitchers.
Yeah.
Boone is really well set up to be outmanagered.
He's especially in the bullpen.
Yeah.
With using his bullpen. But then we have to remember that, to me, Boone is like he's not a person, really. I don't think of him as a person. I think of him as a corporation. He's like a committee. He's the head of a committee. Behind him is Cashman and the analytics and whoever. And the decision making is so, I think, perverted in the Yankee system sometimes. Right. I mean, for example, Peraza sitting on the bench for the last, month. Yeah.
Can't follow with that. I know. I couldn't agree more. He's the talking head. He's the press spokesperson.
Yeah.
And by the way, not the best at that either, because he's not the most articulate of people. No. But anyway, you're right. Francona is the puppet master, whereas Boone is the puppet. And so
that's a great way to put it.
And that matters, dare I say, just as much as what we're talking about all the time in terms of the players.
Right.
Because it's what you do with them and who you use when. And to your point, of course, I think I speak for most fans. I hope I am. Peraza, the entire reason we've been clamoring for him is because he was a top prospect at shortstop. And why has he been here? But we're going to continue to see IKF.
I know.
And do we really, I'd love to hear from people that listen now or, when you watch this later. What do you think about that? Are we really just saving him on the bench?
Right. What is the experience that Peraza is having up at, at the big league level that's been so important for his development? Because he's been sitting most of the time.
Right.
When he played, he's been productive and he's been, everything I think fans thought he would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, trying to, it's impossible to objectively predict how we're going to do against the Guardians.
Right.
But, all the good points that were raised by Pinstripe Alley and the post about the Guardians is one of the points, though, is that we have to remember that the Guardians made it and just to the wild card because of it was the weakest division in the American League. So whereas we weren't. So by the skin of our teeth at points. But we were the clear top team in our division.
Right.
Which, was not a joke. Other than the Red Sox.
Do you think if I click on the comments that we'll be able to see them, or do you think if I click on them we'll get kicked out of here?
No, you're able to click on the comments, and
I did. Okay, great. Yeah. We have a couple comments, but it's mostly people just checking in, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah. So we had Tony has been coming in and out. Who joined us last week. So and it looks like he might have gotten booted a couple of times, but I hope he comes back and contributes like he did last week. And if you're listening live, don't be shy. This is our show, all of us. So we really do want to hear your thoughts on that.
Lynn, I know that every week you plan out the trivia question with great care. What have you got for us this week?
So this week, we tweeted out to our followers and invited them to send us their recommendations for trivia question of the week. And this week I got 2 and I have to use both. And so double the homework this week, guys. Ready? So the first question is, who was the first Yankee to hit a grand slam in the World Series? And the second question is, the Yankees faced the Mariners in the inaugural division series in 1995. Who was the very first Yankee to bat in that series in Game 1 and the very first New York Yankee batter? I'm going to repeat that one again. The Yankees faced the Mariners in the inaugural division series in 1995. Who was the very first Yankee to bat in that series?
All right, those are great questions.
And they're both timely. So
both extremely timely.
So I had to do them both, and I want to give a shout out to @7Trivia and our friend Spencer. At MusicMixNMD. You could just search Spencer musician, and you'll find them.
Yeah.
And so thanks to both of them for their contributions this week, and we'll be looking for the same this coming week.
We are going to be with you throughout the playoffs, whether there's Yankees in the playoffs or not. I think there will be, because I think that this year we win, we take it all the way. Of course, I think that because I'm a Yankee fan. But remember, 11 o'clock on Sundays, we will be here to talk baseball, to talk about the Yankees. Anything baseball related is going to be the topic of this show throughout, not just the postseason, but the off season as well. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you'd like to talk about or hear about. Send us questions.
Right. And if you missed us live, we'll be posting the link like we always do so that you could watch it after. And as always, you'll always have a seat on the upper deck with me and Chris every Sunday at 11. Let's go Yankees, beat the Guardians!
Yes!